A key component of the Care Act is the introduction of a new approach to the assessment of people's needs for care and support, and the determination of whether these needs are eligible. In this film, social care practitioners talk about how their working practice will change as a result of the assessment and eligibility framework. First, they identify what is most significant to them.
The concept of well-being, which I think is a much wider concept than previous eligibility frameworks that just focused on independence. So I think that's a significant shift.
It's thinking about the transparency as well, and making sure that the person we're supporting is aware of how we're supporting them, and what we're doing in order to help them develop a greater understanding of their strengths and their needs.
I think it's about educating both the communities, the individuals within the community that we go to see, and also us as practitioners, because we've got to learn to take a step back and not feeling like we've got all the answers.
Their discussion covers the framework, its key principles, impact and challenges.
One of the things, obviously, in terms of making the eligibility determination is deciding which needs are eligible and which are ineligible. Mm-hmm. How would you kind of explain that to somebody, if you were describing what that means?
There are 3 rules that you need to apply in terms of the eligibility. One is that you determine, first of all, whether or not the person's needs are born out of a physical or mental health issue. The second is that they meet 2 of the eligibility regulations or outcomes, and 2 or more. And the third is that those outcomes have a significant impact on their well-being.
We've talked about, obviously, the 3 conditions that will help you decide if needs are eligible. Why is ineligible important then? What's the relevance of that?
Well, I think people may have outcomes that they want to achieve that actually wouldn't be eligible. There may also not be a significant impact on that person's well-being if they're not something that is supported or met.
Mm. And what's different now about how they'll be dealt with?
There's a role in assisting that person to look at the ways in which those can be met, but it may well be that there's a range of different things, local community support, different ways that can support the person to achieve that.
As if 2 people have got the same condition, does that mean that they would both be eligible? How's that going to work?
It depends upon what the condition is and what stage that person is with that condition. It depends upon what support networks that person has got. It depends upon how they see themselves and the strengths that they've got.
We could have the same needs, but you could have a much more positive outcome and feel, actually, no, I'm fine, I have no issues, whereas I feel that actually my well-being is impacted upon, and therefore I need support.
I think it's very clear, although we're talking around needs derived from a health or mental health need, people aren't the conditions. People operate in different ways and are impacted upon by different things, have different aspirations, and I think that's the key to actually arriving at the outcomes and the impact for each individual.
Help that person recognise the strengths and not become dependent upon services, but utilise the resources that they've got available.
Yeah. There may well be people, I'm sure there will be people with eligible needs who actually won't have an ongoing need for support from the local authority. Absolutely. Other than the time to actually help people structure their thoughts, to make plans and to put those plans in action, because there's a range of resources out there that have been identified that they've got access to.
Apply the 3 criteria to determine eligibility. Consider the range of outcomes people want to achieve and link these to the specified outcomes in the criteria. Be aware that eligibility depends on the individual's circumstances, not just their condition. Provide information and advice to people to support them with needs that are not eligible.
How are you going to approach making the eligibility determination itself?
We need to take a look at our approach when we're actually with a person in their home, and how we create a conversation from them to draw upon the information they can provide to us, so we can have an holistic view of what their needs are and to meet the eligibility criteria.
the discussion is led by the person themselves to start with. That's your starting point always, in terms of what the person's telling you about the life, what the person is saying they want to achieve, the outcomes. It's about it being, sort of at the right pace, making sure that they're, where possible, that they're leading and you're getting the right quality of information, and they feel equally that they're being sort of listened to, there's an engagement, and they can control that pace.
Conversation should be led by the individual, so they feel their needs are heard. High quality information ensures that a holistic view of the individual is gathered. This gives the practitioner confidence in making an evidence-based eligibility determination.
So how are you going to be approaching eligibility determination with carers with support needs?
At this present moment in time, we're still looking at the needs of the carer, but I guess what we don't take into account is the impact, the significant impact on their well-being. So where the outcomes for a cared for person, that you have to meet 2 or more. With a carer, it's whether or not they meet any of the outcomes as stipulated in the eligibility regulation. So that puts their assessment, if you like, on par with the cared for person. So it's much more
The principles are the same.
The principles are the same. It's much more on an equal footing.
Which I do think is a much more flexible and inclusive approach to actually supporting the significant contribution that sort of informal support for whatever makes to people's lives.
And the fact that it's all around, well-being is entrenched throughout the Care Act, and I think that's the biggest change, and I think will be the biggest change for local authorities and practitioners alike.
3 criteria are applied to determine the carer's eligibility. The assessment process is the same as the cared for person. It should ensure a flexible and inclusive approach.
You've done the assessment, you've totted it all up and made your eligibility determination. What happens about telling people? What will you be doing then?
They have to be provided with a copy of their assessment. It gives a clear definition of how we've followed the processes through, and the information they've provided to us has helped us identify the outcome.
It's about having a robust set of information the person recognises does seem to fit with their life, the needs and the outcomes that they want to achieve. And I think if we can do that clarity, we've nothing to fear, because we're actually providing people with something that is a reasoned document that people are able to understand, be supported to understand, and will far more readily accept than some obscure process that is done to you.
A copy of the assessment and the eligibility determination should be provided that contains clear and evidenced information. It should also demonstrate a shared understanding of the outcomes the individual wants to achieve.
What do you think are going to be the main challenges for practitioners?
I think one of the challenges is going to be around the time it takes. I think it's, we're talking about a significant shift in the way that we do things. It's about giving people themselves more time to shape their thoughts about their feelings, their situation, to give people time to listen, feedback, arrive at a consensus, and that may take more than one visit. But one of the things about that is I think we felt that the more investment up front, the better quality information, the better outcomes that are identified, the payoff is further down the line that people are having less involvement from local authorities in their lives because they've been supported to take greater responsibility for themselves and how those outcomes are met. So it's about having that upfront investment to manage the change.
So it could be about us, if you like, as practitioners, being the asset. We're going into somebody's front room and having that discussion, help them realise how to achieve their outcomes, but not by us doing something to them, by them being able to step out their own front door and actually access resources in their own communities.
To be successful, the process needs sufficient investment of time to ensure individual needs are understood. Information sharing between agencies is essential, as is a partnership approach to best support people's desired outcomes being achieved, and to enable access to a wider range of resources.
we work to so many different types of legislation now, the fact that this supersedes all other, I think it will be far easier from a practitioner point of view to have it just under one legal framework.
And from a practitioner's point of view, it's easy to explain to the people that we're supporting.